After this failure, Giles questioned himself, and he eventually came up with a new method, a Giles method. With this method, Giles would gather all the user's needs. He would write down each one of these needs on post-its. After that, he would classify them by order of priority, and he would call that a backlog. And Giles, since he was the guy in charge of final product backlog, would call himself a PO, aka product owner. Then Giles would detail his backlog to his stone team for about an hour and a half. They would discuss together about every post-it, and they would divide the post-its between themselves. This meeting he would call a sprint planning, and it would give visibility to the whole team. At last, the stones could start developing a solution that would meet Giles's needs. Developers would progress on their actions and would do a daily team meeting every morning to synchronize everyone. During that daily meeting, they would update their Kanban board, the one with the to-do, ongoing and done. It was used to follow up tasks' progress. Giles, because he was the best dude in town, would call those meetings dailies. After 2 weeks, the team would present to Giles their first version of the club. Giles, as he saw all the work produced by his team, would call that a demo. Giles loved demos. After all that, Giles was happy. But meanwhile, he had a slight change of mind. He wanted his club to be a little bit more powerful. So the team set off for 2 more weeks of iteration with new actions. Those 2 weeks, during which his team would have been developing a piece of the final product, Giles would call a sprint. And to help him implement this method, Giles would name a Scrum Master, a person in charge of coaching the team and applying the methodology. But if a sprint had not been enough, the team would realize that they needed several more, following the exact same pattern. And at the end of every sprint, they would show a piece of the final weapon, and Giles would say if it met his needs so that the team could adapt continuously for the final product to please Giles entirely and even go beyond his expectations with a Clubmobile, for example, which Giles would rename a few years later the Batmobile. This is what Giles would call the Scrum method.